Avelis of sphere, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. There are different approaches as to what is the rationale for the Avelis of Sphira. It's true that there are many that are associated with the Gemara. The Gemara speaks of, after all, there in Yevamos around Daf Samach, that the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva died between Pesach and Atzeres. So there are those that associate the Avelis of Sphira with that, but that's not the only explanation for the Avelis of Sphira. There are those that associate the Avelis of Sphira with the fact that this is the period that the Crusades took place. The Crusades took place this time of year. That's the basis of the minhag that we have to say Av Harachamim throughout the days of the sphere, regardless what your minhag is with respect to Sphere Omer. So the minhag is to say Av Harachamim because Av Harachamim is a tefillah, the Iyun Nishmas, those people that were killed on Kiddush Hashem. Also the Shamanutki massacres for this time of year, what's called Pra'ot Tach V'Tat. So that's also one of the explanations given for the Avelis during this period of the year. Rabbi Soloveitchik has some other explanation, which perhaps we'll discuss at some time. But when exactly each one developed, and that I don't know. An interesting question. I have no idea. Don't know. Okay. So on today's agenda, Rabosai, I'd like to spend some amount of time on Tolson's Kufchaf Gimel Amid Beis, Haiselo Para Mukhkaras and Miskaras. In theory, we could have discussed that Tolsos at the very beginning of the parak, but due to the somewhat confusing nature of Tolsos, I figured that we should first start with things that are a little bit less confusing. So now that we're all very much into this parak, so I'll allow myself to learn a Tosfos that's a little bit confusing. Whatever, kids. That's okay. So first, the big picture, and then we'll discuss the details. Tosfos has two parts. In a certain sense, Tosfos first asks some question, an argument for the Gemara Daf Yud Gimel. He gives an answer, and then Tosfos asks an additional question. What exactly is the relationship between the first part and the second part? That's something that's discussed by the Achronim, which will certainly not discuss at this particular point. Okay, so what's Tosfos' question? So the thing is the following. The Gemara Daf Yud Gimel, which we'll discuss in a bit greater length in the continuation, the Gemara Daf Yud Gimel indicates that if you have a father that dies, and leaves on Eved or Behemet Mea, then the Bukhar will be entitled to use the Eved Behemet Mea 2/3 of the time, and the Pashat 1/3 of the time. Okay. The Gemara there asks this in the context of its discussion with Agad, which perhaps we'll get back to in a bit. But for now, what's important is simply that the Gemara says that we have an Eved Behemet Mea, then the Bukhar is entitled to use 2/3 of the time, and the Poshet 1/3 of the time. Okay, so Tosfos says that Gemara is problematic and it would seem to contradict our Gemara. In what sense? Well, the thing is the following. Our Gemara indicates that according to Rabbi, the Bukhar gets Pishnayim of the Shavach that took place after the death of the father. But according to Chachamim, the Bukhar is not entitled to Pishnayim of that Shevach, of the Shevach that takes place after the death of the father. And if that's the case, then according to Chachamim, the Bukhar is not entitled to Pishnayim of the Shevach that took place after the death of the father. How are we to understand that Gemara on Daf Yud Gimel? After all, there on Daf Yud Gimel, in effect, the Bukhar is getting Pishnayim of the Shevach after the death of the father. How so? Well, Tosfos is assuming, an assumption that maybe we'll discuss more in the continuation, Tosfos understands that the work done after the death of the father, that is in effect Shevach. That work didn't exist when the father was alive. So the work done after the death of the father, that's tantamount to Shevach that took place after the death of the father. And according to Chachamim, the Bechor should not be entitled to Pi Shnaim of that work. So our Gemara indicates that according to Chachamim, the Bechor does not get Pi Shnaim of the Shevach of the death of the father. And that Gemara indicates that the Bechor does get Pi Shnaim of the Shevach. Because after all, the Bechor there says, has the Eved Be'er work for him 2/3 of the time. And that work done at the death of the father is, in effect, Shevach. So that's Tosfos' question. Okay. To be able to understand Tosfos' answer, let us give a brief introduction. What happens if the Bechor, what happens if the father leaves a bunch of trees, and before they split up, the trees produce fruit? Will the Bechor get Pi Shnaim of those fruit? When they then split up, will get Pi Shnaim of the fruit? Answer, no, he will not. Because after all, if they only split up after that fruit grew, or if there's only request for splitting after that fruit grew, the Bechor won't get Pi Shnaim Neshel. But hey, certainly once they split up the trees, then obviously the Bechor will get Pi Shnaim of any subsequent Shevach, being that they split up the trees and he has Pi Shnaim of the trees, obviously he'll get Pi Shnaim of the Shevach that grows on those trees. Right? Once they split up, then certainly the Bechor, when he gets Pi Shnaim of the Nechasim, will get Pi Shnaim of the subsequent Shevach, because after all, it's his Nechasim that are producing the Shevach. Before they split up, when everything is in the communal pot, when everything is part of the estate, then for whatever reason, we'll discuss this B'ezrat Hashem more in the continuation, not today. Before they split up, then the Bechor is not entitled to Pi Shnaim of the Shevach. But once they split up, then obviously the Bechor will get Pi Shnaim of the Shevach. Furthermore, the Gemara in Kuf Chavav indicates that even if they didn't split up yet, but the Bechor at certain point says, hey, I want to split up. I want to get Pi Shnaim of the Shevach. So any subsequent Shevach from then on, he will be entitled to. So at what point on, from what point on is the Bechor entitled to the Shevach? Certainly once they split up. From after that, obviously he's entitled to Shevach. But if they didn't actually split up, but the Bechor put in a request to get his Pi Shnaim, then any subsequent Shevach he'll be entitled to. Shevach that took place before that request, he's not entitled to. But Shevach that's accrued after that request, he is entitled to. This is the line that Kuf Chavav, Bechor Shemicha Micha. A Bechor that made a Macha, that was Mocha, that said, hey, I want to get my share, I want to get my Pi Shnaim. That is a valid demand, a valid request, and from there on, he's entitled to Pi Shnaim. The exact nature of why that's so, the Rashbam has some explanation over there. I ain't sham. It could be that according to Tosfos' explanation is somewhat different, but now it's not important to us the nature of that din. What's important is that, as you said, from the time the Bechor puts in a request to get that Pi Shnaim, from any subsequent Shevach he is entitled to. It says Tosfos, if that's the case, then we have a simple answer to our question. Let me first point out that Tosfos, both in his question and in his answer, he sticks with that equation between the rent money on one hand and the work done after the death of the father on the other. Both in his question and his answer, he assumes that these are both forms of Shevach that's accruing after the death of the father. Just in his answer, what he says is the following. True, the work done after the death of the father is Shevach. But nevertheless, the Bechor is entitled to Pi Shnaim for a simple reason. If, after all, they're in that sugya, when the father dies and leaves them the Eved Mei B'Tmeah, the Bechor says, hey, I want my share. I want this Eved to work more for me. I want this horse to work more for me. That is a form of micha. That's a form of putting a request. I mean, that's the case. So the subsequent work is something that the Bechor is obviously going to be entitled to. So Tosfos asked, hey, why is the Bechor getting P2 of the work? And they're on Daf Yud Gimel. After all, isn't the work Shevach that's taking place after the death of the father? So Tosfos say, sure, it's Shevach taking place after the death of the father. But the Gemara tells us on Kuf Chavav that once the Bechor requests his P2, then any subsequent Shevach, who is entitled to, even according to Chachamim, once the Bechor requests his P2, who's entitled to that Shevach?
The Bechor.
Can anybody help me? The Bechor. So there, in that sugya, where the Bechor presumably says at the time when the father dies, hey, I want to use this Eved more. I'm Bechor, I'm entitled to having more use of the Eved, then that's in effect a request for the Shevach. And once you request the Shevach, even the splitting up wasn't actually done yet. That's the Chiddush of the Gemara Kuf Chavav. Even the splitting up wasn't actually done yet. Nevertheless, from that time on, the Bechor does get the subsequent Shevach. And hence, over there, the Bechor does get P2 of the work. Tosfos' question was, why is the Bechor getting P2 of the work? Ain't that Shevach? Says Tosfos, sure it's Shevach, but it's Shevach which is being accrued after the Bechor filed for his P2. And any Shevach that comes in after the Bechor files the form for his P2 is Shevach that's meant to go to the Bechor. So by us, Rabbi Osai, in our Sugya Kuf Chav Gimel, what's the sequence of events? The father rented out a cow, and the cow, let's say, worked some months before the death of the father, some months after the death of the father. Then the rent money comes in, and the Bechor says, give me P2. So in according to Chachamim, is he entitled to P2? No, because when did that Shevach, when was the obligation, when was that rent money accrued? That rent money was accrued before the Bechor said, give me the Shevach. I mean, that's the case. So he's not entitled to that P2. Any rent money that would be put afterwards would be entitled to. So therefore, by us, the Bechor on Kuf Chav Gimel does not get P2 the Shevach. According to Chachamim, over there he would. Let's point out, according to Tosfos, if the Bechor by us would immediately upon the death of the father have said, hey, I want P2 the Shevach, and maybe the Chanami, he would be entitled to P2 of the Shevach. But being that the cow was rented out, the Bechor presumably didn't necessarily say anything, and therefore the rent was accrued without his filing for that request, and therefore the Bechor, if he didn't file for that request yet, then he's not entitled to that P2. In effect, by saying, hey, give me more time, let me use this Eved, this Behemoth Tamea, more of the time, that was filing for P2 the Shevach, and thus he would be entitled to that P2. That's Tosfos' question and answer. Let's see this inside. Yes.
Wouldn't that go against the Rabbanan's reasoning on Kuf Chaf Daled Amud Aleph?
That's a good question, and that is something that we'll only be able to answer when we learn the Machlokas Rebbe and Chachamim. So you're right, that's something that does require some explanation. Depends on how you read that Chachamim. There's different ways of reading the Chachamim. But you're right, that's something that will need to be thought about. If we don't come back to that within the next week, then please come back and ask. Okay, so let's take a look at Rabbi Osai. Haisa buchkaras o muskaras biyad achem b'chor notel P2. Lekaman mukila kerebet. To Rabbanan ein b'chor notel P2 b'shevach shel mechas makzis b'yaveh. Okay, so that is just stating that this price is according to Chachamim, is according to Rebbe, not according to Chachamim. According to Chacham, the Bechor is not entitled. So now he asks, hey, according to Chacham, he's not entitled. Well, what do you do with the Gemara in Daf Yud Gimel? Avgav the Bechor Pashut. Shnech lemavim eved behemet tameh. Over the Zeh Yom Echad, L'zeh Shnei Yamim. So you see that the Bechor does get Pishnayim with the work, and work Tosfos assumes is equated with Shebach. And says Tosfos, oh well, hey, Hachanami also here. If the Bechor says O Techalku O To Pishnayim or Shus Biado, also over here, if the Bechor would request Pishnayim the Shebach, then any subsequent Shebach the Bechor would get. And presume what Tosfos means to say that over there in Daf Yud Gimel, in effect, when the Bechor says, "Hey, after all, there the Eved Behemet Tameh wasn't hired out," so presumably after they get up to the Shiva, the Bechor would say, "Okay, I want to use this Eved," and the Pashim would say, "I want to use the Eved," and presumably they would go to the rabbi, and the rabbi would say, well, hey, the Bechor is entitled to Pishnaim the Eved, and the Pashut. So the Bechor, in effect, there were, or if they don't go to the rabbi, and the Bechor, when they go to the rabbi or not, the Bechor presumably would say, I'm a Bechor, I want Pishnaim. So the Bechor is putting in a request. So even if they didn't actually split up, even without actually splitting up, since the Bechor is requesting his Pishnaim, that's sufficient basis to get the Pishnaim. And therefore, any subsequent work, the Bechor is in fact entitled to, even according to the Shita of
Chachamim.
even according to the Shita of Rabban. Okay, that is part one of Tosfos, which I do want to discuss some more. But first, let's go through Pashut Pshat of part two. Let's zoom out for a second and let's realize that the Brisa talks about a case of where this para was muchkaras and muchkaras by whom? Who rented out the cow?
The father.
Father. Thank you. The father rented out the cow. So the father dies and rented out the cow, and we're told that according to Chachamim, the Bechor doesn't get, and according to Rabbi, the Bechor does get Pishnaim of the rental money. Now, what would the din be if the Yisomim rented out the cow? I.e., the father left a cow in the barn, and the Yisomim decide to rent out the cow to somebody else. Would the Bechor get Pishnaim of that rental money? Would he get Pishnaim of the rental money? So over here we have the Machlokas Rishonim. Rabbeinu Yonah says that not. Rabbeinu Yonah, and one of the pieces that appeared, Rabbeinu Yonah indicated that not. Or why not? Well, very understandably, Rabbeinu Yonah says that's under which heading?
Shevach
Sheshbicha Yisomim, which the Bechor does not get Pishnaim, as the Gemara said in Kuf Chav Daled Amud Aleph. That's Rabbeinu Yonah. But Tosfos assumes, it's not clear to me yet why, but Tosfos clearly assumes that the Bechor would get Pishnaim. This is not called Shevach Sheshbicha Yisomim. Why not? Well, perhaps, although they did the action of renting it out, but it's not as if they necessarily themselves produced labor. You know what? I'm not sure why not. Let's now leave that as an unknown. But Tosfos clearly is assuming that the Bechor would get Pishnaim, and it's not called Shevach Sheshbichu Yisomim. And being that that's the case, the Tosfos assumes it's not called Shevach Sheshbichu Yisomim. Tosfos then asks the following very simple question. Tosfos says, why does the Brisa give a case of where the father hired out the cow? Why doesn't the Brisa give a case of where the Yisomim hired out the cow? That, after all, would be a bigger chidush. Why would it be a bigger chidush? It would be a bigger chidush due to the fact that you would have thought that when the Yisomim hire out the cow, it's Shevach Sheshbichu Yisomim. So the Brisa should have taught us that bigger chidush, that in the case that even when the Yisomim hire out the cow, the Bukhar gets P Shnayim. Rabbi Yonah, of course, you could ask him why the Brisa didn't give that case, or why the Brisa didn't tell you that Chiddush. Rabbi Yonah would say, because that Chiddush is 100% dead.
Wrong.
Wrong. The Brisa didn't speak of that case. The Brisa didn't say that when the Yisomim rent out the cow, the Bukhar gets Pishnayim, because there's a particular rule which says that Brisas don't like to say things which are sheker. The Brisa didn't want to tell you something which is wrong, and therefore, according to Ben Yonah, that's why the Brisa didn't speak about that case. But Tosfos understands that the din is that even when the Yisomim rent out the cow, the Bukhar gets Pishnayim, and that's Tosfos asks the question, why did the Brisa not state that bigger chiddush? To which Tosfos answers, in effect, true, there would be some special chiddush in that case, but on the other hand, there's a special chiddush in the case which the Brisa does speak of. What's that special chiddush? The special chiddush is that you would have thought that once the father rented it out, so it's out of the father's control. And as the Gemara indicated, at the end of the Amud, you would have thought that since it's out of the father's control, it's not under the heading of Muchzak, it's under the heading of Roy. It's under the heading of Roy, and the Bukhar would not get Pishnayim. So Tosfos' question was, why not tell us the chiddush of where the Yisomim are rented out? And Tosfos answers, in Achanami, there would be a chiddush in that case. There's also a particular chiddush in the case where the father rents it out. And for whatever reason, the Brisa decided to go with this chiddush rather than that chiddush. So let's see that inside. It says Tosfos, Bahad lo nakat. First one is Bahad. Bahad lo nakat chakru avzachu hayisomim, which would be in a certain sense a bigger chiddush. Mishum dahash tashmin and chiddush tvei. Now it's telling us bigger chiddush. Why Tosfos is the bigger chiddush? No. The avagav shaisa chakura skor b'chayav v'chashmin la para roy. We don't consider the para to be a roy, and since we don't call it roy, the Bukhar in fact will get P Shnai. Okay. So, I'm sorry, 1 second. So Tosfos had two parts. First part, the question, Daf Yud Gimel, and the answer. Second part, Tosfos asks the question why the Brisa gave in this case and not another case. The Maram, in some lengthy piece, he connects the two parts of the Tosfos, which, as I said, we're not going to go into now for amongst the reasons I have no idea what Maram was talking about. I didn't understand the second piece of the Maram. So maybe next time I'll get a greater insight. And I saw some Machorim, I think, have some other approaches to the connection between the two parts of Tosfos. Yes.
Can you just explain that what would be the big chiddush if you get Pishnayim if the Yisomim rented it out? So the chiddush would be that's not considered the Yisomim like making a real shinoi on it. That's the chiddush.
Again, keep in mind the Brisa says that when the Yisomim produce the Shevach, then the Bukhar does not get Pishnayim. Right? That the Gemara tells us. So we think that this is called that the Yisomim produce the Shevach. Right?
If they rent it out.
If the Yisomim rent it out, right?
So, okay. That would have been.
Okay, Rabbi Wilson. Now, as I indicated, I would like to discuss.
Rabbi?
We can even tell us a little bit more in depth. Somebody's going to comment. Yeah.
Yeah. Would Tosfos' lashon in the second answer be any indication of if he holds like the Rashbam or the Ritva in regards to if it's Bielda for both or
the Rashbam and the Ritva? I have a short memory. Remind me which. As far as the 1 second, please. What's the? Look, the beginning of Tosfos clearly indicates that he's learning back the Rashbam. Right, the beginning of Tosfos. After all, his question is he's contrasting the rent money, presumably. When he's asking Daf Yud Gimel, there it says the Bukhar does get Pishnayim the work. Over here it says the Bukhar doesn't get Pishnayim the rent money. So I think Tosfos clearly is learning that the top of the price is rent money, right? Like the Rashbam, not like the. Okay, thank you for in fact pointing that out. Okay. Before any further discussion, so let's switch to Daf Yud Gimel. The Rosh Yeshiva said that until Shavuos time, and then the Shiurim, they're able to learn any parak that they want. So we've learned now enough Yaish Nochlin. Let's switch to Daf Yud Gimel. The Gemara there asks, as we mentioned, there the Gemara discusses the concept of good or agud. Good or agud means either buy or sell, meaning therefore shutfin in something, and I want out when the shutfin want out. So if it's something that yesh bo din chaluka, that's there's a significant, that if it would split up, there would be a significant share for me, significant share for you, then I could certainly force you to split up. Let's say we're partners in something. We bought a car together, and I want out, but you don't want out. So can I force you out by telling you, hey, either you buy me out or I'll buy you out. You decide. But I don't want to be a shutuf anymore. If you say, no, you want to remain in the shutufs. So that's a machlokas amoraim. And the Gemara asks, Rabba asks Rab Nachman, according to you, Rab Nachman hold. If you maybe turn your Gemara to Daf Yud Gimel, so Rab Yehuda says there isn't a good or good. Rab Nachman says there isn't. So Rabba asks Rab Nachman, according to you, that's saying that there's no such thing as good or good. If you say you can't force somebody out, then what will the din be? If the father leaves them an eved or behemoth male. If the father leaves them behemoth Torah, a cow, so if somebody wants out, then maybe they could decide on shechting the cow. And each one will have enough for a mangal on Lag Bomer. Each one will have enough meat. But if it's a behemoth male, then how are they going to work? If they need to remain shukman, what are they going to do? And the Gemara answers, well, they'll do time sharing. Now, a number of issues need to be thought about in terms of understanding this Gemara on Daf Yud Gimel. Number one, what exactly is the Shakla B'Tayovir? What exactly is the question and answer? Isn't that obvious? That if they remain shutfin, then what they'll do is time sharing. Well, what exactly was the, after all, Rabba text Rab Nachman, according to you, that there's no din of good or agud, what are they going to do? So is the answer obvious? Time sharing. Furthermore, one thing which we Rishonim discuss at length there on Daf Yud Gimel, when the Gemara wants to ask, hey, when Rabba asks Rab Nachman, you that don't hold of good or agud, then what do you do when a father leaves an Eved Behemoth Tmeah? Why in heaven's name does the Gemara speak of a case of Dafka Bechor and Pashat? Why not speak of a case of where a father dies and leaves two pshutim? There are cases there's no Bechor. Let's say the oldest child is a sister. So the Gemara, why does Dafka focus on Bechor and Pashat? So again, now we're more than 100 pages away from Daf Kuf Chav Gimel. Now we're just on Daf Yud Gimel, and we're trying to understand the question which Rabba asks Rab Nachman. Rabba asks Rab Nachman, you that hold that one is stuck in a shutfus, that you can't force yourself out of the shutfus, and Rabba asks Rab Nachman, what do you do when a father leaves the Bechor and Behemoth Tmeah? Which Rab Nachman gives the very deep response, time sharing. Rabba wasn't smart enough to think of that. So what exactly is the question over here? Isn't the answer obvious? And furthermore, you need to figure out why exactly does Rabba Dafka mention the case of Bechor and Pashat as opposed to Shnei Pshutim. So here there are a number of approaches. One approach I will mention, Tosa has two approaches in Daf Yud Gimel, and now we'll mention one of those approaches. Perhaps down the road we'll mention another approach in Rishonim. But Tosa's first approach is the following. Tosa's first approach in Daf Yud Gimel is that Rava realized the theoretical possibility of time sharing, but Rava thought that time sharing is unfair. Why is time sharing unfair? It's unfair to whom? Tells us to Pshat. According to one Pshat, it's unfair to the Bechor. According to the other one, it's unfair to the Pasha. But tells us in the first Pshat, which is a bit similar, it says it's unfair to the
Pasha.
Pasha. Why unfair to the Pasha? Because, hey, there are certain types of malacha which could only be done if you have an eved available for 2 days straight. Certain types of work that can only be done, you can't do in parts. Certain types of work which you need, 2 days worth of work straight. So if in fact you're going to do time sharing, Rava asked Rav Nachman, then the Bechor will in effect be getting more than Bishnai. So according to me, if y'all that you do good or agud, then the Pashut could force his way out of that, shutfus. But if
Really?
you yeah.
Why don't you just extend the amount of time each person has? Like have instead of
And how
one,
much precisely are you going to extend it?
however much you need. I don't know.
Yes, because that's not something which is so easily accessible. So I assume that's why that option doesn't really exist. So, right, yeah, you see what I'm saying? It's not something which is so easily accessible. And that so Rav is asking Rav Nachman, if you hold good or all good, then you could buy his way out. But if you don't hold good or all good, then it's hard to do a fair splitting up. And what's Rav Nachman's response? Rav Nachman's response is, well, you do time sharing. The Bechor has it for twice the amount of time. That's a little bit unfair to the Pasha. Well, that's the way the cookie crumbles. The Gemara has an expression in Ksubas, which get, I don't remember, it's in Ksubas, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. Gemara has that respect to certain Mishnah in Purim. That was interesting, the source. So come back later. We haven't discussed it, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. Them's the breaks. So just to summarize, so we had 2 problems with Gemara. That Gemara Daf Yud Gimel didn't. The one that asked the question realized you could do time sharing. Another question was, why Daf the Gemara picks on the case of Bechor and Pasha as opposed to Pshutim? So Tos over there explains. Of course, the one that asked the question realized that there's a theoretical possibility of time sharing. We thought that time sharing is not fair. And that's that would also explain why Dafka chose the case of Bechor and Pasha. By two Pshutim, then of course, everybody realizes that it would be fair to do time sharing. Just the question was, if there's no din of good or ugud, if you can't force your way out, then time sharing is unfair. So what are you going to do in the case of Bechor and Pasha? Time sharing is unfair. Which the answer is, well, hey, what can you do? That's them's the bricks. Okay. Adkan, the Gemara there, according to Tosis, first chapter. Okay, let's put that on the side. And now
Rabbi?
I want to ask you the following question. So our last step was simply to spend some time on the Gemara Daf Yud Gimel, and we explained what exactly the Makshan held, what exactly the Tartzin held. Now let's put that on the side and let's discuss a totally different topic. When you have an event which is being time shared, sounds like a great startup. If anybody wants to start an idea for an event time sharing an event, the Din of event can only apply nowadays. Might have some legal problems in most countries, but in any case, so if we share Behema Tameh, that works some days for me, some days for you. When we bought this Eved initially with the agreement that during even years it works for me, and odd years it works for you, even days of the month for me, odd days or we decided at some point that after having been the total shutfus, we decide some days it work for me, some days it work for you. So I want to know what's the din in the following case. When we did split up the work of this event, we split up that some days he works for me, some days he works for you. So we know that there's a din that an evet kanani could serve as a chatzer. There's a din if there's some egg that's laid in my chatzer. I'm calling it kinin chatzer. So there's an evet kanani that we're time sharing, and on the day that he's working for me, he's taking some nap. The evet's not sleeping. Then perhaps he doesn't serve as a chatzer for whatever reason. Chatzer malachas. So the evet is taking a nap on a day that the evet is working for me, and some goose lays a golden egg, or regular egg for that matter, on top of this evet. The evet is doing work for me. Let's say the evet is not dafka in my yard. Evet is doing some work for me out in the field. So on the day that the evet is working for me, the goose lays a golden egg on the top of that evet. To whom does that golden egg belong? Does it belong to me exclusively? Does it belong to both of us together? So that presumably depends on the following chakira. The nafkamina is not one which I saw in the Achorim, but the Achorim certainly do discuss the following chakira. The Stipler in Siman Tes and Baba Basra, which I sent to you guys, not as part of the Marmakomos. I didn't list it on the Marmakomos sheet, but the Stipler does, there on that sugya, raise the following chakira. He points out that this time-sharing business could be understood in two distinct ways. When we have an evet, the hematmea, that we're time-sharing, that part of the time is working by me, or part of the time working by you, this situation can be understood in two distinct ways. One way of understanding it is that we both have ownership of the guf of the evet, the guf of the behemoth man. Just the work is some sort of shevach, is some sort of payros, and we made some agreement to split the payros. On the guf of the evet, the current of the evet, we still continue to own b'shutfus. And if that's the case, quite possibly, this golden egg would belong to both of us equally. The golden egg would belong to both of us equally. However, one could understand that when we decide the evet will work for me some days and a few others, then in effect, we are splitting up the shutfus. After all, if we're shutfim in a bench, then one way of splitting up this shutfus is by my taking the left side of the bench, you're taking the right side of the bench. My taking the top of the bench, you're taking the bottom of the bench. If we're shutfim in a field, we could split up the shutfus by our deciding that this field will belong to me with respect to playing football, and with belong to you with respect to being able to use it to make kumsitz on at different times. So all sorts of different ways that you could split up a shutfus. One of the ways of splitting up a shutfus is that on even days of the month, it will belong to me, and on odd days, it will belong to you. After all, there is such a thing as an object which at certain times belongs to me and other times belongs to you. After all, I could give a present to you. I could declare I'm giving you a present that will belong to you as long as you're alive. And after your lifetime, will belong to somebody else. And so that object, to whom does it belong to? Well, as long as you're alive, it belongs to you. After your lifetime, it belongs to somebody else. So you can have an object that at certain times belongs to one person, or other times belongs to another person. So similarly, one might understand that when you have this Eben Behemoth Tmeah, again, before we talk about Bechor and Pasht, and if Eben Behemoth Tmeah, that we decide that on even days of the month will work for me, and odd days of the month will work for you, so one could view that situation, as we said before, that throughout the month, we both own the guf of the Evet. Just some days you get the fruit, the work, and other days I get the fruit, the work. But one could understand that when we decide that he works for me on some days and for you on other days, in effect, what we are saying is that this Evet on some days belongs to me, and on other days belongs to you. And that's the case, then if some golden egg is laid on top of this Evet during my time, during my days, then presumably this golden egg will belong to me exclusively. So that is our chakira, which we have with respect to time sharing. When we have time sharing, do we view this as just sharing the Eros, the Shevach, to view it as a splitting up, in a sense, a splitting up of the Shutfas. Splitting up of the Shutfas. Okay. Now, what is Tosfos' position on that issue? Tosfos that asked his question from Daf Yud Gimel on our Sugya, to Tosfos, and his question at least, to Tosfos view time sharing as a situation where the guf still belongs to both, and they're just sharing the Shavach, or does Tosfos view that time sharing situation as one which, in effect, as a splitting up, and on some days belongs to one, and on other days belongs to the other? So Tosfos, certainly in his question, certainly also in his answer one might debate this. Tosfos' his question certainly is assuming that time sharing is pshat and time sharing, that they both own the guf and they're just splitting the peros, or is pshat that when they're time sharing, that is a form of splitting up. So Tosfos certainly is going with possibility A rather than B. Why do I say that? Well, if Tosfos is going with possibility A, then I understand his question. If we understand that time sharing is not a form of splitting up the shutfas, rather they're still shutfin the guf, it's just splitting the fruit. So Tosfos says has a good question. That our Gemara indicates that the shevach after the death of the father, according to Chachamim, is not something which goes to the Bukhar. And there the Gemara says that the work after the death of the father does go, Pishnaim of the work does go to the Bukhar. But if you would assume that when there's time sharing, that is a breaking up of the shutfas. When there's time sharing, then on the days that the evidence is working for me, when we decide that some days is going to work for me, then it's my evidence who's working for you, it's your evidence. If that's what time sharing is all about, then Tosfos' question is a non-question altogether. Because granted, there the Gemara does say that the Bukhar gets Pishnayim with the work, and the Pashut gets just 1/3 of the work. But is that a kasha on our Gemara that says that the Bukhar doesn't get Pishnayim from death of the father? Certainly it's not. That as a double Pashut, that once the Bukhar and once the Yerusha is already split up, once they split up the Yerusha, then obviously the Bukhar gets Pishnayim of the Guf. So if you'd assume that when you have a situation of time sharing, then that is a splitting up of the shutfus. Then you don't mikash from the Gemara over there in Daf Yud Gimel, because what's the Gemara telling us in Daf Yud Gimel? The Gemara is telling us that the father leaves, and he works for the Bukhar for twice as much time, and works for the Poshet one part of the time. So in fact, what's that Gemara saying? If you understand the time sharing splitting up, what's the Gemara telling us? That you split up the Yerusha. You no longer leave it in the communal pot, but you split up the Yerusha. So obviously once they split up the Yerusha, the Bukhar is going to get Pishnayim. So the fact that the Gemara over there says the Bukhar gets Pishnayim of the work once they split up, that's certainly not a kasha in our Gemara. But let's take it from a slightly different approach. Let me mention the following. What's the din Rabbosai in the following case? If the father leaves, 12 animals. He leaves 2 sons, and how much is the Bukhar entitled to? He has 2 sons, so he split Yusha into 3 parts, and the Bukhar is entitled to 12 divided by 3 is 4. The Bukhar is entitled to 8 of those 12. Okay, thank you. It's good to hear your voice, Josh. So the Bukhar is entitled to 8. So the father died, leaving 8 animals. And then the Bukhar takes 8 of those animals. And the Pashat takes 4. So will the Pashat be able to say, if the Bukhar then rents out those 8 animals, will the Pashat be able to say, hey, you're not entitled to that Shevach. That Shevach you're getting from those 8 animals, that's Shevach, that's accruing after the death of the father. It's not trying to make any sense. That's utterly ridiculous. Because once they split up, obviously, once they split up, then they're no longer shutfed. Once they split up, then obviously the Bukhar gets the any shevach that takes place afterwards. So if that's the case, and that once they split up, then obviously the Bukhar is entitled to any shevach that takes place afterwards. So if you would understand that when the Eved works part of the time for the Bukhar and part of the time for the Pashat, that is in effect splitting up. That on the Bukhar days, he's owned by the Bukhar. On the Pashat days, he's owned by the Pashat. Then the second they made that arrangement, that he's going to work for the Bukhar 2 days and the Pashat 1 day, they did a splitting up. So obviously, the Bukhar is entitled to the work during his days, and the Pashat is entitled to work. And is that a violation? Is that a stira? Is that a kasha? That which our Gemara says that the Bukhar, when the Chacham doesn't get Pishnayim? Obviously, it's not a stira, because our Gemara is talking about the Shevach that's accrued before they split up. And in that Gemara, it's Shevach. If you, in fact, do understand that time sharing is a form of splitting up, that on the Bukhar days belongs to the Bukhar, on the Pashat days it belongs to the Pashat, then once they made that arrangement, they split up. So obviously the Bukhar will be entitled to more of the work. Obviously the Pashat will be entitled to less of the work. So Tos's question is assuming that time sharing is not viewed as splitting up it's not viewed as totally splitting up the shutfas. There are remaining shutfim in the guf of the animal, in the guf of the eved, just they're sharing the payros. They're splitting up the payros. So Tos says, it's splitting up the payros, splitting up the shevach. So why is the Bukhar entitled to the shevach which takes place after the death of the father? And Tos answers, well, hey, true, it's Shevach taking place after the death of the father, before the actual splitting up. But once the Bechor says, I want P2 of the work, he's filing his request. And once he files his request, he's entitled to P2 of the Shevach. So in any case, Rabbi say. So to sum up, so Tosfos asked the question, what does the argument say according to Chacham? Is the Bechor entitled to P2 of the Shevach after the death of the father? Argument says no. Does the Gemara over there say that the Bechor gets P2 of the work after the death of the father? Yes. Is the work viewed as Shevach? Tosfos implies that yes. So should the Bechor be entitled to P2 of that work or not? So why does the Gemara say he gets P2 of the work? Answers Tosfos, well, hey, take a look at Kuf Chavav. There the Gemara indicates that once the Bechor files for his P2, from that moment on, any subsequent Shevach, he's entitled to the P2. So over there in Daf Yud Gimel, when the Bechor says, I want the Eved Be'emet to work more for me. So he's filing a request. So being that he filed that request, even though they didn't actually split up yet, from then on, he's entitled to P2 of the Shevach. Just to be pointed out, that those questions in the first place is only going to be a question if you assume that in a time-sharing situation, that's not an actual splitting up. But if you would view a time-sharing situation actually splitting up, then tells the question wouldn't get off the ground in the first place, because after all, there we have a time-sharing situation of over Lizet, Yomechel Lizet Shnei Yamin, and if you view a time-sharing situation splitting up, then what's Tosfos' question? Why is it the Bechor is getting P2 of the work? He's getting P2 of the work due to the fact that the second they decide that over the Yomechel Lizet Shnei Yamin, then in fact they are splitting up, and once they split up, then certainly any subsequent P2 the Bechor is going to be entitled to. Okay. We have not finished our discussion of Tosfos. The question is, though, whether Tosfos has finished us off. Whether we're still, you know what? Try to look over Tosfos, try to think about what we discussed. That Chakira is one which is found in the Steipler. We don't have time to go through this now, but in fact, this Chakira is, in effect, according to some Rishonim, it's written there in the Gemara on Daf Yud Gimel. I'll just mention very briefly now. Could be that the Nochlin held that time sharing. That the Nochlin held that time sharing is not breaking up the shutfus. It's just Shevach. So the Nochlin felt it's just Shevach. Then is the Bechor meant to be getting P2? It's not meant to be getting P2. So the Gemara is asking that if time sharing is just Shevach, is not splitting up the guf. If it's not splitting up the guf, then the Bechor would not get P2. So Bechor could say it's not fair. To which my answers that time sharing is splitting up the guf, and therefore the Bechor will get P2. Okay, I would assume that most people are already in lunch or supper mode. So I'll wish you a happy Lag BaOmer. Let's keep in mind that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai would probably not be thrilled with too much Bittul Torah on his yard site. So we'll try to use the time well. But tomorrow, as I said, we'll talk about that some Lag BaOmer related topic. Hopefully, will be a source sheet. Okay, everybody will be able to shave. I realize getting a haircut, unless you have some barber in the house, might be somewhat difficult. So those who like to shave will shave, and then people have plus reason to be camera shy in the future. Okay, I will say. Have a wonderful day.